Oops. How to share it? Crap. I always forget how to share it. Stream will start in a bit. I just have to figure something out. Okay, got it. Okay, I'm gonna turn on music and then we're ready to start. Music for me at least. All right. All right. Welcome to today's stream. The goal is to continue designing a character for my short movie, and yesterday night I already started, well, I not really started, but I designed a couple of characters and I figured out that I had the wrong approach for it, so I try something differently today. I want to approach it with a marker style technique because you get more indication of detail and just more happy accidents this way. Alright, just have to open up some of the reference material. Okay, got it. Hey, that onion, thank you very much. Yes, I like this approach as well, as it's way more, it has a lot more potential than going with line art. I struggled so hard yesterday. I was trying to draw them with a very clean line art style, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't create the spontaneous happy accidents that the black marker creates. You have a lot of indication of detail that otherwise wouldn't be there, so I decided to go with this technique. And it took me, I don't know, 1.5 hours to figure out that I went for the wrong approach at first. I think so, yes. I'm not even 100% sure, but this might be a standard Photoshop brush. Let me check. It's not even a dual brush, but it has some texture on top of it. Might be custom made, I have to say. I don't think it's default. But yeah, as you can see, it has this kind of shape plus texture. It's not a dual brush, so relatively easy to manufacture it. Cool, man. At one point I just downloaded, I don't know, hundreds of brushes, as you can see, and there is so much stuff that I don't use, but what's really cool are these stamp brushes. So if you have like a skyline, oh damn it, didn't work. As you can see, skylines, trees, all kinds of stuff. It's really cool to stamp something out and go quickly from there. Instead of painting all the details, you save tons of time. Okay, I don't need this. Go away. Oops. Right. And sorry, by the way, sometimes I have to type because I'm also in another stream simultaneously and they can't hear me, so I have to communicate via chat sometimes. I knew you would say Joji Shinkawa. I love this dude. He has influenced me so much, and you're totally right. Also, the sketchy technique is a little bit inspired by him. So I would say it's a mixture between Joji Shinkawa and Feng Zhu style of sketching. Yeah, man, if you want to share some of your artworks, feel free to do so. I will check them out. Oh yeah, that knight is cool. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I'm also often unsure how to approach line art type of sketching. I actually do not really like it. I'm a huge fan of painterly approaches. And yeah, as you can see here, if you're very familiar with the subject matter, it might be easier to go with a line art. you might be quicker that way because you know all the shapes and all the materials, but if you're in an experimental stage, yeah, I would suggest different things like photo bashing or marker sketching, something that creates tons of details, and you can pick or flesh out the details that are interesting for you. Oops. Yeah, man, don't worry. We all start at some point. Do you visit a live drawing class or something like this to improve your painting, or do you just paint alone by yourself at home? All right. See. Yeah, man, it takes time to improve. I mean, I've been drawing since I was a kid, on and off. I didn't really have a goal. I wasn't really sure what to do with it. Everyone was saying, you can't make a living out of it. Now I kind of do. And digital painting, I don't know, I've done it for maybe 10 years or so, also on and off. Tried all kinds of things, animation, 3D stuff, but this concept artist style like Joji Shinkawa, this, I don't know, is the most fun to do, for me at least. Oh man, I'm so glad I've discovered this brush. It's so easy to draw stuff with it. I mean, for some methods, the rougher, the dirtier, the better. You can always clean up afterwards. Yeah, man. It's all in the brush. I'm doing nothing really. I'm just scribbling around. Yeah, it feels like cheating. I mean, of course you have to know the anatomy and the proportions, and you have to have some rough idea where you're going to go with the stuff, because I want to paint some, you know, thick leathery stuff, something cyberpunky with a little bit of tech inside, so you might fill in a couple of shapes that indicate something techy. And maybe there is more practice to it than I want to admit. I'm not sure. But it's definitely a cool technique. I mean, I would like to show something that I'm working on currently. It's for a client, and I think this is a similar approach that I'm doing with the brush strokes, but just more with photo bashing. And since it's work in progress, you can see how I approach it. Yeah, it's basically, I've put tons and tons of photos into this image and smudged them, and the photos help me to extract more information out of it, you know, or to create a perspective and a motive and so on and so forth. But all in all, you paint over it, you slap some photo textures on top of it, paint over it again, and you repeat this process so often until the image is, you know, really fleshed out. But it's so hard to paint something out of your mind like this. It's next to impossible. You need good reference material, you know. In the end, it's all about controlling the medium. Either Photoshop controls you and you end up in a zone where the reference material is dominant, or you know your basics and you can control the image. It's always a little bit of a struggle, if you will. I wouldn't even say it's a struggle, it's just exploration. Yeah. There is a struggle for me in art which can be a little bit tricky to explain, but I can. Oh, I don't want to do just anything, so I have to. I think I might know what you mean. Well, it's not that easy actually. For me, it's good to have a goal. It's good to maybe have a story that I want to tell with my images, and then I can paint subject matter around this story. So it's not just drawing anything, but it's drawing with some kind of sense and purpose. And if I explored a certain subject matter very often, I get to a point where, as you said it, I get like ideas, very concrete ideas in my head, because I crammed a lot of information into my head. I explored a certain topic extensively, and then stuff just starts to flow because my subconscious has figured out what looks good and what doesn't, you know. But there's also a danger. Sometimes I know some artists, it depends how you mean it, but some artists, they sit around and wait for the big inspiration to come, but it's always a two-sided thing. You have to put some info into your brain for the big idea to emerge from it. You know what I mean? So what I want to say, it's alright to paint just something along the lines of your idea to figure out what you don't want to have in your image. Thanks. To be honest, I was surprised myself because these characters are the design for a short movie I'm working on, and I have been researching for this movie for about 2 years. I've done nothing else than research stuff and read stuff and search archives for old photos because it's supposed to play in a post-Soviet era. And I thought, yeah, at the end I'm gonna have so much information in my head that I instantly will know what kind of character I want to have, but I was wrong. I still have some exploration to do because I'm dissatisfied and I have actually no idea how the people are supposed to look like. I don't know, this is the third or fourth iteration stage, and I don't feel that I'm closer to a final result. Number 3 is still my favorite. Let's see. How do I make it more interesting? I don't know. Sure, man, don't worry. So I'm trying to flesh out some of the information in this guy, and I am not super sure how to approach it as of yet. It might be a fail, we will see. To get my head around the clothing and the shapes and make some sense out of it. While keeping the detail, of course. and sometimes you cramp up and you don't want to change anything. I would say my strategy right now is to keep this loose and very rough style, because it's the only thing that, you know, makes sense for me, and keep continuing to explore the shapes and flesh them out and try to figure out what the heck he's wearing. But I like this layering. I'm not even sure if I have tried this kind of method before. Well, I think I did, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember how I got to a finished result. It's definitely more a painterly approach than anything else. Getting some sense into the noise, some details, something for the eye to track. That way. Crap. I don't know, I find it so much more rewarding to work with lights and shadows than with super clean line art, at least at this stage. It's way more fun, but you also get consumed by the details quite quickly. So always maintain the balance and keep the brush strokes loose and brave. So a little bit of background to this character. It's the second main protagonist from the short movie, and he's called the Vendor. It's an older guy, 40 to 50 years old. He sells and buys scrap metal, and he is a mysterious character. He knows something that no one else does. He knows that there is a problem that barely anyone is aware of, and beyond that he knows also the solution to this problem. So he has some kind of mystic aura around him. But yeah, he's also trustworthy, but we don't know this from the beginning. So I want him to be a tall and fit male kind of character with a good taste in fashion, which sounds a little bit weird considering this will play in a dystopian cyberpunk future, but I want his clothes to be tight-fitted and elegant still in some way. Hey, that onion, welcome back. I'm going to introduce another tool that I'm using extremely often, and this is a smudge tool, and this is probably my most used brush. Some artists ask, like, what kind of brushes do you use? And most of the artists will say, well, you can use any brush, it's all in the basics, it's all a matter of your technique, and so on and so forth. But I have to disagree in some point. There is indeed one magic brush, and this is the smudge brush. And the reason for it is because it mimics light. It mimics the dynamic and behavior of light very well, and it saves me tons of time because it creates gradients with one stroke. And if you look around, light always falls off in gradients. It's just how physics work with light. There's barely any situation where you have evenly lit objects in reality, so I love this tool. It's also not that easy to use. You have to understand how to apply it properly, but it saves tons of time, and I'm gonna use it now because I see that it's a good point for the image to apply this technique. So for anyone who's watching, just to clarify, so I have black color here and white color to the next to it, and if I want to create a gradient, I usually would pick the color, stroke it, pick the lighter color, stroke it, pick another lighter color from there, and I would create a gradient. But this is time consuming and not necessarily the most efficient way, and I have this smudge brush and I just smudge from one direction to the other and it creates a gradient automatically for me, and it's super efficient. And the cool thing, if you work with photo plates and photo bashing, you can destroy the content of the image so it doesn't distract you, but you still keep the color palette and create interesting mixes of colors. And this is how I approach my color images. This gives also a very distinct look that only my artwork seems to have. Everyone says like, I can see your art miles away because of the smudgy look and your techniques, they shine through it, and I find it funny. It's a good unique selling point you get from there. And it's also a good tool to fix your image, because whenever you paint and you don't know what's wrong with the image but you feel that something is wrong, it's usually the values or the colors. The contrast is too high and it makes your image look very muddy and dirty. And in order to fix this, you can just smudge out all the dark and bright areas of the image and harmonize it in terms of value. And it's very efficient, it's very cool, and usually fixes the problem. Whoever is watching on YouTube now, I greet you and I welcome you to my stream. Because I have quite a couple of people watching through YouTube, so hello. Anyway, I just realized that my workflow is working from a bunch of noise to fleshed out details. Some people construct the image and they first create, I don't know, like a scaffolding for the character, whatever, and I can't work like this. I need a lot of noise. I need something on the canvas and then extrude the details out of it. Because some things, for me personally, only work with a certain degree of details. I just love to get caught up in details. And they inspire me, and they guide my image. And yeah, that's just the way it is. It's my preferred working style. It creates my distinct painting style, so why not keep it? I mean, every time I try to get out of the comfort zone by painting, I don't know, with line art only, for instance, it feels so off, it feels so wrong for me. Super frustrating, so I get back to my usual workflow. And it's fine, because you've developed it over the years, why abandon it? Oh yeah, it has so much detail. I'm getting jizz in my pants. Alright. So my personal conviction about the philosophical and methodical approach of art is we basically have a lot of ideas already in our head, and it's a matter of technique how to extract it. And when you see videos of Feng Zhu, for instance, he talks about the visual library. So you, by watching sci-fi movies as a child, you nurture this visual library. You see shapes and patterns and designs that influence you whether you like it or not. And if you try to reproduce your own thing, it's good to know how to access your memory. And it's my personal conviction that by having a bunch of detail and sorting out these details on your image, you actually access it. Not by just starting to paint on a blank canvas, you know, start in the left top corner and try to finish it in the bottom right one. This is a very linear approach. This is how printers work and not how our mind works. And there's this funny phenomenon when you look into the sky and you see clouds, you start to see shapes of dragons and turtles and whatnot. And this is the same technique, basically. Our brain is designed to recognize shapes that we are familiar with. So if you have watched tons of I don't know, science fiction movies with starships, and you slap on some color on your canvas, or you know, make like a marker type of design like I did here, and you start to extrude shapes from it, you will naturally start to extrude starship shapes from it, if this is the task. So yeah, this is basically how our mind works, and if you understand this principle, then you're basically halfway of becoming a good designer, because everything else is just complementary to it. You're just trying to improve the techniques and find new ways of forcing happy accidents in your image. Oops. Yeah, I'm way more satisfied how this comes along than my first attempts, man. There, so wow, this is really, how do you say it? Embarrassing. Some people say, or they focus a lot on substance, and which is fine. But with art and with music, whenever I write something or I draw something, I have to say I wouldn't put one above the other necessarily, because I need a good style to convey this substance. It goes hand in hand. It's supposed to harmonize with each other. Because when you're unhappy with your style, your design will suffer inevitably. I mean, it's logical. You have to be proud of what you're doing, and you have to like it in the end. And when you find a style to convey your ideas will also improve. So for every artist out there who focuses a lot on the quality of their designs and abandon their natural style, I would say try to bring both in harmony. You know, I feel like my first attempts with line drawing, they feel like a child has made it, because I restricted myself unnecessarily. And I think you might be a better painter and designer than you realize if you find the right way to access your style, or if you develop a style that you're satisfied with. I hope it makes sense. I mean, I know I'm rambling, but it's my stream. I can ramble how much I want. Oops. Yeah, I like the jacket. It might end up as one of the final designs. Really satisfied with it. It's quite tricky to art direct yourself, because you can run into the problem of being constantly dissatisfied with your images because you look at them all the time while designing, and sometimes it's good to have yeah, external artists who produce stuff for you, because you have always this fresh eye on them. I have a good friend, she draws a novel, and I find it amazing. The style is gorgeous, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to publish it. I mean, this thing is, I don't know, 50% done, and it's such an amazing book, but she doesn't even want to go public with it. I think I'm the only person that has ever seen her work, and she's like, yeah, when I'm finished with it, I'll probably repaint it. I'm like, oh man, this is such a typical problem of artists, being completely dissatisfied with their work all the time, and I don't know, man. Artists have to learn to get rid of this weird issue and just publish their work, because it's amazing. There's no need to hide it. But yeah, I think many people can resonate with what I'm saying. I mean, I had and have the same problem as well. I have to force myself every time to publish my work, and also to make a little, how should I say, to make a little party out of it. Because you have so many social media channels at your disposal, why not celebrate a finished picture? And who cares if there are tens of thousands of other artists outside? You are unique in your own style. You are on a road of self-development with your art. You don't have to be perfect. No one expects it. People see something else in your art anyway than you. You probably only see your own mistakes, but people see a story, something emotional that they can connect with, especially if they're consumers. Yeah, just be brave. Just do it. Have fun with it. Have fun with self-promotion. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really happy how this is turning out. Because yesterday I was so frustrated and I thought like, oh man, I am such a bad artist. I don't know how to get to the final design. But now, through style, not necessarily through substance in the first place, I found a way which I will pursue, and I love this immense amount of detail. I mean, the helmet will not stay this way, because the main protagonist has we have a face that we can see, but in this case it doesn't matter, because it's more about his clothes than his face. For the facial design I have a very different character sheet. Oh yes. This has the flare I'm looking for. Ah, finally. Maybe I can even try to animate him. because this would be the immediate second step. I wanted to make a character animation and to check the pipeline, how to animate characters in my movie, because it's supposed to be to keep this 2D type of feel. I don't want to have it a full 3D animation movie, but something more reminiscent of the frame-by-frame hand-drawn pictures. And for this reason I need a somewhat finished design, and this might be it. We will see. We have such an amazing weather right now in Berlin, but it's still cold. I'm not sure how warm it is outside, because I'm sitting here with my shorts, and I'm just above the basement, and it's cold. What I don't like about this dude is his pants and his legs. They're too low. It's so funny when I see starting out artists, they try to be very clean, or some get into the habit of trying to be extremely clean about their images and be really, I call it constructive, basically calculate the image through, and they end up with an image that looks very cramped up. It doesn't look loose. And I was always curious why the eye seems to respond better to noise. Hey Greg, nice to see you. Thank you very much. I have seen your attempt, your half-hour attempt of your VR capture. It was quite impressive to see your setup. But there's one thing that bugged me. At one point you were driving with a tank through a city at high speed, and I was like, do tanks drive that fast? It was like, I don't know, 100 miles per hour or something. Oh man, Oh, that sucks. Have you ever tried VR chat? Oh yeah, I totally believe you. I would probably cling onto something in my room. It's too fast. Help. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, man, this is the protagonist, the second main protagonist for a short movie that I'm working on. He's called The Vendor. It's a guy who he sells and buys scrap metal and parts and Android parts, and he helps the main protagonist because she comes to his store and she's damaged, and he repairs her. And he's supposed to have some kind of wisdom that no one else has. So some kind of mystical. It's a mystical figure. We don't know much about him, except that he's trustworthy. Yeah, and I want him to have a very thick but also slick, how should I say, fashion style. You know, though it's dystopian and cyberpunky, he's still wearing high quality boots, for instance. A technomancer. Yeah. Well, there are androids in this world. The main protagonist is one. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it. But yeah, technomancer, probably, yes. It's actually a cool word. Maybe I will change it from vendor to technomancer. And we never find out if he's human or android or maybe a cyborg or something like this. But he definitely has augmentations, so he's probably a cyborg. Yeah, thanks, man. I think so too. This is actually why I decided to go for this design. Here are the first sketches, and I thought, man, this looks like a cool leather jacket. It had some shapes going on that were interesting. I tried to extrude them a little bit. And I want to animate them, and I need a good, somewhat finished design to do so, but I can see all these different parts parallaxing each other a little bit, you know, moving whenever he is moving, because I don't want to make this full 3D. I don't actually want to keep as much 2D look to it as possible. Yeah. I think it's just a standard concept art stance, you know, a guy with balls. A little bit Solid Snake like. Yeah, but I'm not sure. I'm satisfied with the jacket to, I don't know, 90%. Yeah. But I am not sure about the pants and boots. In some of my dreams he has a very long, how do I call it, coat. But I'm not sure if it fits his style, so I might save it for another iteration. And every time he moves, we hear this bell sound of his balls clinging, not clinging, but hitting each other, you know. Clonk, clonk. Yeah, but I'm happy with the style, definitely, man. Yesterday I was struggling so much. I felt like a 6-year-old scribbling around and having no idea what the frack I was doing, but now I have a better idea on what's going on. But I really like this approach, you know, creating sense out of tons of details and noise. Right. Greg, are you planning to stream today again? Because at some time I would really love to visit your stream and drop a few lines. And it would be really interesting. Oh yeah, alright. I hope I can make it. I will be around for a couple of hours, but then I have to go to a concert. But maybe before that. Yeah, I would really love to see your work. Do you usually save your streams, right? Yeah, indeed, man. Cool. Alright, if I don't make it, I will check them out later, because I'm in your depth, bro. You constantly visit my streams, and I don't know, I live in a weird time zone for some reason. I always miss them. Sure. sure what to do with his pants. I've never liked to draw pants because they were the least interesting part most of the time. But they are vital, so we have to approach this design as well. Fancy pants. God damn it. The YouTube algorithm for identifying music that plays in your background is so hardcore. I have headphones next to me and my microphone is picking up some of the noise, and it doesn't matter how quiet they are, YouTube still figures out what kind of song this is and gives me a, not a copyright strike, but a, you know, infringement notice. And I'm like, what? What the hell? How precise is that? So I have to unplug them, the headphones, in order to save myself from any embarrassing situations. I've tried to listen to royalty-free music, but sorry, I just can't. It's not my music. But I think it's a good compromise if everyone just listens to the stuff they are interested in, and they can mute me or they can hear me talking on the side, so I think it's a good compromise. I welcome everyone who has joined the stream. Quite a few people all in all. Hello, and thank you for stopping by. Welcome back, Greg. I hate painting pants. I think I've said this before, but I hate it. Such an uninteresting part of the character. I have to say, streaming has been a super experience so far. I mean, you obviously you have the disadvantage that your computer starts to get slower while streaming, and it slows me down quite a bit sometimes compared to my usual working speed. But painting live and interacting with people at the same time is super beneficial for your self-confidence and your competence as well. Yeah, man. It's so weird. At the beginning I was so afraid. I was like, oh man, I'm not good enough, and who cares? But no, it's amazing. You do it in your own speed. You don't let yourself be rushed by anyone, which is also really cool. Yeah, this is also true. Yeah, they don't slack around. It's more focused. I think it's also a very valid substitute for working at an office, because I work at home. And I do not like to stream always, because there are some tasks that need your undivided attention and they need a very different speed in terms of working, because yeah, sometimes you have to go back and forth many times, and it would be uninteresting to stream that. But all in all, I like the hybrid. I like to switch between streaming and working on my own. Whoops. Oh, by the way, Greg, just as a side note, I'm also in a different stream. It's called Watch Me Work. Maybe it's interesting for you. You get thrown into a group of 3 other artists and you can watch each other work and exchange information, but only via chat because it's muted usually. But it's very cool because it gets you some extra views and some interaction. So if just an idea, if it's maybe it's interesting for you. It's also 3D. I've seen people doing 3D stuff and modeling as well. And it's not intimidating or something. It's just regular people doing their stuff, sketching more on a hobby level. So yeah. Alright, 10 more minutes and then I'm off. I'm thinking that one of the reasons why I prefer this very noisy and value-driven technique is it's basically indicates light, and I find it way easier to communicate geometry and design through lights and shadows than with line art. In my view, line art is always an abstraction. When you have 2 surfaces, one darker than the other, next to each other, you basically inform the eye that there is a separation of value through a line. But it's an abstraction layer, and I can get a lot of information through shadows. The way a sharp shadow falls gives you more information about the surface beneath it and how it falls, how the geometry is. And since 2D art is nothing than an illusion of light, for me it works just better this way, indicating information. Oops. Alright, man. Thank you very much. I'm gonna join your stream if you start it soon. Thank you very much for sticking around, Greg. All the best to you until next time. No, not really. I think this is the influence of Ryuji Shinkawa still. I cannot even really tell where this militarized impact comes from, really. I think it's maybe also personal preference, or maybe it's because of the pants and the boots. It's very military. It's a typical military trait. But my guess is also it plays in a very dirty, rough world, so your clothing has to be functional and you want to stay away from dirt, so this might be a good justification for these high boots. Yeah, it looks like a very typical military jacket with all these grenade holders and whatnot. So I'm below the waist. I'm not satisfied with the character design. It's too military, but everything above is fine. So a couple of iteration cycles might be still necessary for this character. Alright, it's 5:30 now, so I'm gonna close off the stream. Thank you everyone very much for joining. It was amazing to have your company. That Onion, thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. And yeah, I'm gonna stream 2-3 times a week, so hopefully we will see each other again. All right, see you around. Peace.